Let's see. Is it? Okay, yeah, we are live.
All right.
What's up, everybody? Hello, chat. Rob, what's going on? Welcome to episode 1 of Clout, Goblins with your host, me, Flagrant, and Mr. Crash Mondo Jr. Crash, how have you been, man?
I'm good. I mean, weather's nice in Florida. Well, we'll talk about our guest here shortly. I wish I could move you all down here to Florida. I wish I had those kind of funds, but yeah.
I was actually going to go down to Florida after I graduated from Nuke Med. There was a job down there, and I wanted it so bad because it was near Canaveral, and it would have been extremely awesome.
Yeah.
But before we get to our guest, who is frankly, probably one of the more important people that should be in the news cycle right now, guys, it's back. The Make Marvel Mail Again shirt is back on flagranttriggers.com. Popular demand, fueled by the sweet hate from the woke left cult mind. But another shirt that I would also like you guys to check out is our good old homage to Pete Buttigieg, because we are still selling these, and I will always sell these until the government actually does something about the situation in Ohio. And every penny of profit that comes from this is going to go to the Lonnie, Cat, anybody else in East Palestine who needs help with whatever they need help with. So if you guys got it, then that's great. Grab you a shirt. It's awesome. It's going to help some good people. If not, the big thing for me, just share this and keep these voices out in the news cycle, because there's still a lot of traction in independent media for this because of what's been going on. So, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, smash the like, leave a comment if you're interested or have a question, and let me introduce Miss Lonnie Miller.
Hi.
Lonnie is a resident of East Palestine. You are also inside the evacuation area, correct?
Yes. My home is roughly 1,800 feet from the derailment site.
Oh, wow.
And their controlled burn, and I use those terms loosely because it was not controlled. It was a detonation. I think that term was created in some PR room for Norfolk Southern. It wasn't controlled.
That absolutely would not surprise me, given the speed at which they made that decision. The fact that 6 out of the 7 cars were not compromised. Is that right, Crash?
So there were five vinyl chloride cars. One of them was problematic.
Yeah.
According to their data, they said that one of them was having issues with increasing temperatures, so they were worried about that it might have been already reacting. And so the theory behind it is a controlled burn is supposed to be a manual vent, a very controlled event. But the thing is, like, you look at the pictures, they burnt up all 5 cars.
Mm-hmm.
There's no reconciling those two accounts. Like, okay, you had one problematic car, but you blew up all 5. Like, if you went for the controlled burn and you botched it, you got to own up to it. All right. If you botched it, you got to own up to it. That's the only way that you're going to get on any sort of grace from the people, from the American people who know what's going on with this.
I honestly believe, in my opinion, their controlled burn was the fastest way to get those cars off the rails so they could get the evacuation order lifted, so they could get those trains running through our town again. That's my opinion.
That's actually what I was thinking. Why else would you do it? But if they had gotten the other 4 cars out and they weren't compromised and they could have remained sealed and intact, they would have had to have gotten equipment in there to come in, move the cars with helicopters, cranes, or something like that, which would
And
have taken up a lot more time.
it would have taken up more time and more resources and more money.
Yeah.
And we would still be underneath the evacuation order until that work was done. And I honestly believe, in my opinion, they had to do it the fastest way possible because they were losing money every day.
Yeah, a lot of people have talked about that as well, is just the sheer speed of how fast they got those trains back on the rails and gave an all clear when
Yes.
it was it, anyone who saw the video knew it was not a safe area.
No.
Lonnie,
No.
do you happen to know any of the local first responders in your area?
I do not. Well, I know them, but how do I want to say this? I know people, but I'm not close friends or close family with any of the first responders. I do know a very good friend of the family. He is a volunteer firefighter over towards Alliance, Ohio, all the way over, roughly an hour away from here. And he actually helped. He came down late Friday night into Saturday morning and was here also helping
Okay.
fight the blaze. Yes.
I just had a thought that like flagrant a good interview, if we can get someone who is willing to talk, is to find someone who was on the front lines, one of the first responders from the local town there.
Yeah.
Who was there, who perhaps may have actually known who made the call to do this
This friend
controlled burn.
Yeah.
Who actually performed it, because that's been in question.
It is, and it is very much in question right now. And during the Senate hearing, yeah, they asked Alan Shaw, and he was pointing fingers at our fire chief. Yeah.
I didn't get to that part. It's such a long. Yeah, I'll have to keep watching the Senate hearing. I only got about I got about to where your testimony.
Well, it's interesting that they're trying to point it to the local fire chief, who was supposed to be in charge of a controlled burn on the Norfolk Southern vinyl chloride tanks.
Right.
There's no way he's been trained for any of that.
No. And I don't buy anything that Alan Shaw is trying to sell.
That sounds like scapegoat pass the buck to someone.
Yes.
Because it'd be so easy to say, well, he just didn't know what he was doing. Like, no shit. He's a local fire chief. Like, he deals with structure fires, not train car, extremely toxic chemical fires.
Yes. And from the moment that it derailed our little town, we were way in over our heads, because we're just a small little sleepy town in Ohio that no one was prepared for any of this, and we still are not prepared for any of this.
So tell us about that night for you, because you were telling us earlier that you were one of the first people who got stuck.
Yeah.
And you take all your time. If you need a minute, it's fine. And if there's stuff you don't want to talk about, that's fine as well.
I was in my living room. We were watching just a movie on Netflix, just a Friday night, just Netflix and chill, just hanging out. And we've lived in our home for 30 years now. It'll be 30 years in next year. So you get used to the sounds of the trains, because our home is roughly 200 feet from the rail line, and you become used to the sounds. But this one was completely different. I knew instantly that it derailed, because I could hear the impact, the metal on metal, and the crashing sounds, and the initial explosion. I believe the first explosion is what rattled my house. Sorry, guys.
No, it's fine.
You're fine. Take your time.
Yep. Take your time. Take all the time you need. It's not a problem.
That that initial impact, it it thumped and it rattled all of the windows on the side of my house, and I wanna say it reverberated. The sound bounced off of my home and the neighbor's house next door, and I looked at my husband, and he looked at me, and I said to him, I said, the train derailed." And he was like, "No, no, it didn't derail." I'm like, "Yes, the train derailed." And at that time, I was starting to get into panic mode. Um, I remember walking out, I opened the front door, and at that time, my dogs started, barking too because they didn't really know what was happening. Sirens started going off in town, and our street is at the end of our street is a fire station. So the sirens were going off, and the trucks started racing down our street. And I remember going out on my front porch to watch the scene unfold, and the flames, it looked like homes were on fire. It literally looked like a whole row of the houses at the end of my street were on fire. That was terrifying. It was absolutely terrifying. Um,
Yeah, Kat, one of the videos that she sent us was when her husband and had went out, and near the derailment, you could see it looked like an inferno.
yes, it the flames were enormous, enormous, and just the way I can describe it, they were like neon pink and orange. I've just never seen those colors before, and it's just, yeah, it was absolutely terrifying. And watching the smoke that was rising and it was a beautiful night. It truly was a beautiful night. I remember seeing the moon and the stars and how clear it was on one side of town and how smoke filled and terrifying it was on the other. It was a huge contrast. It was just, yeah.
So when at that point, could you smell anything? Was there an odd smell or odor that had reached you guys yet?
Um Probably within, I want to say within the first 10 minutes. At first, it was more just the smoke smell, but then you started smelling like burning plastic.
Mm.
Um, I remember saying to my husband, because he got in his truck, he says, "I'm gonna go see, if he could tell, what all happened." We thought maybe, just a couple cars maybe derailed and there was a fire, or possibly a couple of houses that caught on fire. So he raced down the street in his truck, and I think a lot of people were at that time, and at the same time people were racing on the scene to see if they could help. And he came back and he's like, "Yeah, I can't help, I can't do anything." He's like, "It's best to just stay here." And my son, he was actually sleeping. My son Austin, he's going to be 21 here at the end of the month, and he fell asleep with his earbuds in listening to music. So he was a lucky one. He didn't get to hear the derailment or the explosion, and I'm so very grateful and thankful for that he doesn't have those sounds in his mind like I do. But when I woke him up and I said, "You have to get ready, we might have to evacuate," he didn't believe me. He thought that I was trying to pull a prank on him or something. Um, and then when he came upstairs out of his room, and he went outside, he was like, "Holy shit, mom, yeah, what's going on? What happened?" And he was in panic mode too. He was becoming very panicked. Um, and then I said to my husband, I said, "We need to go check on our neighbor because we have a neighbor next door and she walks with a cane. She's disabled." And when I knocked on her door, she didn't even know what was going on. She knew that there was sirens and fire trucks. She thought that, maybe the factory at the end of the street, something happened there. And at that time is when a volunteer firefighter, or a volunteer, I don't know if it was a firefighter, but a volunteer came up and was telling everybody on our street that we should evacuate. And she said, "I have no place to go." and how terrifying that was, because we were like, well, if you can't go anywhere, stay in your house. And that's pretty much what we were directed to do. If you didn't have a place to go, shelter in place. And that was repeated numerous times that weekend, that if you couldn't leave, then to shelter in place, don't come outside.
And this is just out of curiosity for myself, but since you guys are in a small town, does everyone there have central air that at least comes through a filter, or some of the houses still old enough to where they use window units and stuff like that?
A lot of houses still have window units in the windows. My neighbor is one of them. She has air conditioning units in her windows. We have central air in our house. I think we put that in maybe 18 years ago now. It's been quite a while, so we have an older system in our house. Yeah, we were never directed to turn anything off. No one directed us to shut furnaces off, shut anything down, so it wasn't sucking in that air. Yeah, we were never given any direction to try to seal off our windows, or seal the doorways, or put blankets, around the bottom of the doorways. We were never given any direction that way. We were basically told to shelter in place if you couldn't leave your home.
And you guys had no idea that these chemicals were burning
No.
at the time?
No. I was trying to convince my husband to leave with us, because I was like, we have to leave. And he said, well, I'm going to send you guys. He didn't want to leave because we have two dogs, Lincoln and Chevelle, and he wanted to stay with them. He didn't want to leave them behind. And it's you can't do that. They're part of the family. They are a part of our family, a huge part of our family. So we put our son in his car, and we told him to go to his aunt and uncle's house. And they live literally 5 minutes from our home. So it was absolutely terrifying putting him in that car and watching him leave our driveway when there was fire trucks racing down our street, and you could see the blaze burning down at the end of our street. And at that time, I didn't know if it was a terrorist attack, if that's what was happening, if there was going to be like another bomb or explosion go off. I just remember and he's my only child. I just remember getting him in the car and telling him to drive to his aunt's house. And then I started panicking, thinking, this is going to be the last time I see him. Oh, sorry, guys.
It's okay.
Take your time. It's all good.
Sorry. Yeah. Because as a mom, you want to protect them. As a parent, you want to protect them. And I couldn't protect him in those moments. And it was absolutely terrifying. And I hope that I don't want anybody to have to live through that, like what I did that night. Yeah. And try to make that decision. Yeah.
Yeah, because you were literally caught probably the most flat-footed anyone could be, and there was nothing you could do about it.
There's absolutely nothing. There's nothing.
And it's funny too that you didn't know if it was a terrorist attack or what. Like probably the last thing you would think is, oh, it's just some malfeasance from corporate negligence on the part of their safety regulations.
Exactly. And then, so I was trying really hard to convince my husband to leave. Let's just get in the car and leave too. And he kept saying, no, I will stay. He said, he actually said, if everyone is leaving their homes, we're going to be like sitting ducks. And like anybody could come into your home then if they know that no one's here, which was true. It's true. And he didn't want to leave our dogs behind, and thinking that they could get hurt in some way if someone was going to break in. It's just so much goes through your head in that 15-20 minute period before you decide to leave. And my husband said, go to your sister's house, go with Austin, follow him. Well, not follow him, but I left, I think, about 15 minutes after my son did. and my husband stayed behind, and he sheltered in place in our home with our 2 dogs. And that was terrifying because I was in the car by myself, in my car, driving to my sister and brother-in-law's house. And what I encountered on the street, 15 minutes after I left my son, told my son to leave. I'm telling you guys, like, pick out your worst disaster movie that you've watched recently and imagine yourself in the car trying to drive down the street, and you can't get down the street because there's fire trucks and there's other cars blocking, and then they were blocking off roads, so you couldn't turn down the street because they were blocking it off. And I think I turned around in someone's yard to try to get turned around. There was no driveway. I actually think I drove through someone's yard to get out of East Palestine that night. It's such a blur in my mind. I think I drove through someone's yard to get turned around to head out because they had it blocked off. I couldn't go the regular way to my sister's house. I have a picture when I finally made it to my sister's road on she lives on North Pleasant Drive in East Palestine. When I got up there, she's kind of like on the hill up out of East Palestine. I actually stopped my car to take a photo, and I can send it to you guys after this is over. I'm not very techie, but I can send it to you guys so you can see. But the flames were enormous, and the clouds of smoke on that night, roughly an hour. So this would be roughly an hour after the derailment. The smoke, it was enormous. It was just a different color from what the controlled burn was. Mm-hmm. It was more white and gray, and it was very eerie. It was just an eerie.
Yeah. Is that what Kat described as the fog?
Yes.
So at this point, that smoke had circulated through the area and created almost a fog.
It was yes. And I stopped on North Pleasant to take that photo. I put my window down. I stayed in my car, and I just snapped one picture. And I wish I would have taken a series of pictures from that vantage point, because you could see that it was pink. It was pink and neon orange, and the flames were enormous, and the cloud. It was crazy. It was crazy. And I finally made it to my sister's home, and she met me at the door, and I just remember hugging her and not wanting to let go because I was thankful that my son was safe there at her house, and that Aunt Connie was going to was protecting him. And when I got there into our living room, we all sat down and we were just staring at each other in complete shock and silence. We didn't know what the hell was going on. And I think I was sitting there for maybe 15 minutes, and it hit me that 2 seconds sooner, my home may not be here right now. We may not have been there right now. At that moment, I looked at my sister and I said, literally 2 seconds, and that train would have been directly in front of my house. It would have been, the fires would have been burning in front of my house.
Where it derailed, were there any any houses or homes where the derailment was?
Yes, there are houses at that end that are. I honestly do not believe anyone is living there right now because the fumes and the smoke damage, the chemical smells. I don't know how anybody could be living in their home right now at that section. Yeah.
That makes me think.
How's the air quality and water quality been lately? I assume that it's just with time somewhat improving a little bit, at least, hopefully.
I know This morning when I stepped outside, I could smell it. I could smell the chemical smell. Um, it's worse at night.
Yeah.
And I think they do a lot more digging of the soil, trying to do the cleanup of the contaminated soil. I believe they're doing more of that work at night than versus during the day. Um, it just depends on the day. It depends on the day.
That
Okay.
that makes sense because Kat says that's when they dispose of animal carcasses and stuff, the
And
stuff they don't want people to see during the day.
I say under the cover of darkness.
Mhm.
Yeah. Because, it's easier for people to take pictures during the day than at night and to record things during the day.
Yep.
Who's doing the cleanup? Do you know? Like, I assume it's a contracted company or
I've
several
seen
contracted
many,
companies.
yes, I've seen many different work trucks from different, I want to say, contracted companies that are coming in doing the cleanup. Um, yeah, I don't think it's any one specific. I think there are many. Um, yeah,
Yeah, I don't imagine that there's a large. I don't think that large contractors for that kind of work exists.
no, I don't think
You
so
don't. Yeah,
either.
you got to call in multiple people to.
I know that the night when I finally landed at my sister's house, um, we were only there for maybe an hour, maybe less than an hour, and then we got a knock on the door at her house telling to evacuate her house. We still weren't far enough away. Sure, her house was considered in the zone as well, and we all decided as a family, my sister, brother-in-law, my son Austin, and myself, we decided as a family there to just shelter in place at her home because my sister has an elderly basset hound, and she had just adopted 2 basset hound puppies that earlier that week, and we couldn't see trying to uproot them and try to leave. Um, so we just made that decision to shelter in place there. Yeah.
So you guys get the bigger evacuation notice, and then let's see. I think Kat said it was Sunday before they had you guys evacuate to the high school, or
Yes.
no, from the high
Uh,
school to
to the
completely out of town.
Yes, that was on Sunday. Saturday when I so this would have been about Saturday morning, I think around 7 a.m. Because there was no sleep that night from Friday night into Saturday. I was wide awake the entire night. Um, I sat in my sister's living room on her couch holding a basset hound puppy. He was my only therapy that night. Um, yeah, I heard explosions all night long coming from the derailment site. I call them minor explosions. They weren't like the initial explosion.
Mm.
Um, and they still rattled her living room windows. And she would look at me and I would look at her, my sister, we would look at each other and just stare at each other in silence. And we kind of like shrug our shoulders because we didn't know what was happening. Um, and we were glued to our phones trying to find out as much information as possible, and we were not getting any information. um, it was crazy. You would think that that would have been, breaking news on every station on your TV, flipping the channels, scrolling through the TV trying to find out information, and there was nothing. We were relying on, you know I want to say Stacy's brother Bob, who lives in town, who didn't evacuate, who sheltered in place to tell us what was going on down the street. It was just it was
Yeah.
just crazy. It was just crazy. And I think it was about Saturday morning, about 7 a.m., when the first press release from our our city council, our city management. I think it was the first press release that came out that stated that they were fighting the fires, that the EPA was testing our air, the EPA was testing our air and everything was fine. That was stated in the press release.
Yeah, that let me pull that graphic up because do you have it, Crash?
Which one?
The one about the air quality index? Is it in the Discord?
Probably, and I probably have it. Let me see.
Yeah, I think it was around Saturday morning, around 7 a.m. was when I discovered that press release. And that was through social media. It might have been on
I don't
Facebook.
think I have it downloaded.
Yeah. I think, yeah, it came from Facebook, from one of the Facebook pages for East Palestine.
One of the odd things that I found or came across, WKBN in your town. I don't know if you've seen that clip or that broadcast, but they said that they said it wasn't on fire on Saturday.
I would love to see that clip.
There's been no confirmational evidence that they put out the fire Friday night. No, all accounts show that it was basically blazing all weekend. Which makes me wonder, like, why do you need? What the heck was the point of the controlled? It sounded like it was under an uncontrolled burn already.
It was, yeah. I know.
These accounts just never line up.
That a lot of the local news stations seem to be taking down videos. Yeah, they're it's kind of crazy how they're disappearing.
Well, that one story about Ceram Fab, the little factory you guys have out there.
Yes. My dad actually worked in that building before it became Ceram Fab, so I'm pretty familiar with the building. Yeah.
Well, if you look at KBN, they talk about Ceram Fab, and they say right here, paid its workers for the week. The plant was closed, had a backlog of orders. Norfolk Southern had equipment on Ceram Fab and clean up the accident scene. And then that's pretty much it. It just says they were doing some testing and stuff like that. They don't mention anything about when the workers came back.
No.
At the end of that week. But if you go to NBC, they actually say that when the workers came back within a few days, they were all in the hospital.
Yes.
And they all had chemical bronchitis.
Yes.
And
do we have a status on those men at this point? Or people? I mean, not necessarily all men, but
I haven't heard recently, like in the last couple of days, I haven't heard anything other than I believe something was worked out with Norfolk Southern that would, like they would be paying their wages, because I believe they've pretty much overtaken the entire parking lot over there for the cleanup of the contaminated soil. So they're shut down probably, and I want to say indefinitely now. I don't know the exact term, but I want to say indefinitely. They're closed indefinitely. And it's such a shame because the owners invested millions into that building. It's never looked so good, because my dad worked there when it was called Tube Tech, back in the 90s, early 90s to probably, I think my dad worked there until maybe, I want to say maybe 2001 before he retired. Yeah. Yeah, the building is beautiful now, but now it's a disaster zone.
Well, and they can't argue that it's from the workers who lived in the town that were the ones going to. It was literally all the workers except for Yang, and a lot of those workers were from outside of East Palestine.
Yeah, it's absolutely horrible. I can't even imagine what it smells like inside that building. It has to be. It has to be so bad. It has to be so bad. Just being like literally the train derailment was on the backside of that building.
Yeah, and here, so this is the air air quality testing that they did from the EPA, and this is what they released. And the big red flag is this acrolein.
Yes.
And for everyone watching, so they've got the median measurement from the area, and it's what 14 10 thousandths 10 thousandths as a median, and then you've got 8 thousandths as a or no, yeah, 8 thousandths as the highest measurement. And that's a huge problem. The HQ, which is the hazard quotient, which is, so if you're exposed to this chemical, this is the chance that it could affect you in the long term with this type of exposure from these measurements.
But rather,
And
if it gets over 1, then I think you're pretty much guaranteed. Under 1, like there's still a chance, but it's it's not 100%. So like 1 being 100%, yeah.
Yeah, it's
you look at acrolein and you're at 40,000%.
But they said our air was fine. Our air was fine. Yeah.
I thought I had a MSDS on acrolein somewhere, but I can't find it right now.
Yeah, so for everybody watching, the median was 7. The highest that they measured in the area was 40, and I'm guessing that's going to be right near that Saram Fab building.
I would say so. Yeah.
So that, I mean, that I don't see how that doesn't guarantee some type of serious health issue later for everyone, considering even the median is 7. That's the average.
Yeah. I know. So Saturday, after that press release that I was telling you guys about that came out that said that the EPA stated our air quality was fine. I had in my brain, in my mind, that I could leave my sister's house and come back home to try to convince my husband to leave again. Just because I'm a stubborn lady and I hated my family being separated. And I actually came home and no one stopped me. No one stopped me from coming home. There were no police blocking roads. There was no, first responder. There was no one directing traffic. I was able to just come home. I was like, oh, okay. There's no problem. I thought maybe I would encounter a roadblock or of some sort, but I didn't. So I came home. Openly admit to that. I have nothing to hide. I wanted to be with my husband. Yeah. When I got home here, my house smelled completely different. I knew as soon as I walked into my house that we should not be here. And I still could not convince him to leave because, we're all stubborn. This is your home. You should not be forced out of your home.
And did they provide any type of respiratory protection at all for any of the residents?
No, we were never told to maybe wear a mask, anything like that. We were never given any guidance, anything like that. It was pretty much, shelter in place, or, if you can, evacuate. But after I read that press release in my brain, the air quality was fine. They're stating that the EPA is stating your air is fine. I'm like, oh, I'm just going to get in the car. I'm going to go home. I'm going to get my husband. I'm going to get my dogs. Well, yeah, it didn't turn out that way. My husband said he wouldn't leave. So I said, if you're not leaving, I'm not leaving. So I stayed with my husband on Saturday. We told Austin to stay with his aunt and uncle. He sheltered in place there. I came home to be with my husband, and we sheltered in place here with our 2 dogs. And I'm having a very difficult time knowing that we all were here breathing those chemicals in, and no one forced us, like forcefully get the National Guard in here, tell you have to leave and get you into a safe place. No one did that.
Well, they literally were said, "Oh, it's fine."
They
Well, I
literally
mean, they
said in the
literally
press release
rescinded the
that
whole
you're fine.
evacuation. They
Yeah.
rescinded the whole evacuation order.
And is just unbelievable in my mind, because I didn't know until Sunday morning. Well, let me back up a little bit. Saturday afternoon, I watched my husband it was like a light bulb went off. It was like an epiphany, because we were discussing the smells and the fumes, the chemical smells around downtown East Palestine, because he actually he put Lincoln and Chevy in his truck at one point because he felt that the smells in our house were too strong. And he put them in the truck, and he went to like the opposite side of town, and he was encountering a stronger chemical smell. It was way worse than being in our own home. So he came back home, but he couldn't figure out, why is the chemical smell so bad on the other side of town, away from the fires, where the fires were burning. I watched him that Saturday afternoon, have a light bulb go off over his head, and it was like an epiphany. And he realized, with all of the reports of the dead fish and the creeks and the streams, he knew that the chemicals were in the waterways, and the waterways are what was giving off the toxic fumes and the smells. Yeah, he knew. He might have been one of the first to piece it all together, other than the pictures that were coming in, because we didn't quite understand, well, why are the fish dying? You don't really, because that's on the other end of town. It's on the opposite end. Why is, you start piecing the puzzle together, and you realize it's just crazy. It's just utterly crazy. Like, they weren't damming it up somehow. They weren't trying to stop it, prevent it from getting into the waterways.
Yeah, they didn't try to pump it at all, did they? Into a
No.
separate container or anything? Or
I
trucks?
don't believe so. I don't believe so. It was just left to go and find its way, and just, I think I read at one point, like 500,000 gallons of water were used, I think, the first night. That's a lot of water.
Yeah, so this was the result of the runoff from
Yes.
trying to put the chemical fire out.
They call it fire water.
Mm-hmm.
And then it mixes with the chemicals, and then that's how it found its way into the creeks and the streams. Yeah. So that's terrifying, because you realize that it's in the waterways. So is it now getting into your water that you have in your home? And yeah, yeah. Go ahead.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, it's okay.
Have you guys gotten any results back? Because I know you guys were working on some independent testing as a community, right?
Yeah. So far, they're saying that our water is fine. It's really hard to trust. It's really difficult to trust anyone. It is for me, because, like, I constantly go back to that first press release when they stated that the air was fine. I have a very hard time trusting anyone now. Yeah. Sorry.
It's fine.
You're fine.
We decided to leave. I think it was Saturday into Sunday. So I stayed here with my husband Saturday into Sunday, and then Sunday morning, I'll back up a little bit and tell you guys that my husband actually was probably one of the first people to see them bringing a new section of rail on Saturday. So the fires are still burning, down at the derailment site. And construction, the rail crews were bringing in sections of rail and stacking them in front of our home.
Wow.
Yeah, literally probably less than 10 hours from initial derailment, new sections of rail were being brought in.
That is crazy. That shows you where the priority for Norfolk Southern was at
So
the time.
they were stacking rail instead of trying to contain that water. Yeah, and the chemicals, trying to contain those. They were too busy stacking the rail. So we have pictures of the rail stacked over along the rail line in front of our house. And then so I stayed here with my husband from Saturday into Sunday morning, and then Sunday morning we had a knock on our door. It was volunteer sheriff, and from a sheriff's department, one of the local sheriffs, and a volunteer was with him. They were knocking on doors, getting a head count of how many people were still sheltering in place. Because we were told that Norfolk Southern might have to have a controlled burn, and there was a possibility of the tanker, a catastrophic failure where the tanker would blow. And they were getting a head count because they were recommending for everybody to leave. And if you couldn't leave, they were going to try to bring in a bus, I believe, and evacuate people that way. Like some people didn't have a car, means of transportation to get them out that way. And at the same time, the sheriff told me that Norfolk Southern had set up an assistance center at the local park, at our East Palestine Park. So I volunteered. I looked at my husband and I said, well, I'll go over to the assistance center and see, because we had heard that they were giving like hotel vouchers where they would pay for the hotel, or help pay for the hotel. So you could have a place to stay. So when I went over there, I couldn't believe what I was smelling. The park smelled horrendous. And I knew at that time too that those chemicals were already over by the park. And that's on the complete opposite end of town from where I live, and from, the derailment site.
Was it near the river or the creek?
Yes, over, I believe that's Leslie Run. Yeah, I knew as soon as I was pulling into the park that the chemicals were over there too. And it just, no one was trying to stop it. No one was trying to dam that up. And you would have thought somehow they would have had, pumping trucks, something, sucking the water out, to stop, putting a dam in place to prevent it from going any further. There was nothing over there. And
Do you know if they had the knowledge that it was in the water at that time?
I believe they did. They had to have. I honestly believe they did. And that wasn't priority.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah.
It makes you question where the priority was, because it certainly wasn't on helping everyone evacuate
No.
or giving you any kind of respiratory protection.
No. It was like looking back now, there was no rush. There was no it was not it was not forced. It was like, "Oh, you can stay, no big deal. You can shelter in place. You're fine. The air's fine."
There's
We
no
were
sense,
it just, yeah. We told
no sense of urgency for you guys.
no urgency, no rush. No big deal. You'll be fine. Get out at your leisure. It wasn't until I think it wasn't until when they started telling us that there could be a catastrophic failure and that if that tanker were to blow, it would send metal shrapnel, miles into the sky. That was terrifying. And to know that it could wipe out, a mile diameter, wipe out homes if it were to have a catastrophic failure, then you started thinking, okay, I'm probably not safe in my home. We probably really need to get the hell out of here. Yeah, that's when I think it really was hitting hard. My husband started saying, okay, yeah, we should probably get a plan into place and figure out where we're going to go, and we need to get out of here. And then at the same time you're realizing, well, if this if a catastrophic failure could happen today, that means that it could have happened since Friday. Like, you realize like how close we were to it. Just, if those train cars were on fire this whole entire time, why hasn't someone told us to leave, to get the hell out of your house, get to a safe place? No one was here to help us. No one came to help us. Like, those tankers, in my mind, those tankers could have went Friday night. It could have been a catastrophic failure Friday night into Saturday, and there was no urgency. There was no one telling us to get out.
Well, it amazes me that because obviously there's a manifest for what's in on the train cars,
Yes.
and they know exactly what it is, so they should have an emergency action plan
Yes.
for instances like this.
Yes.
And it doesn't seem like anything was communicated to anyone in the community. It was basically like, here, we're gonna drop this bomb in the middle of a small town and see if they can deal with it.
And I've heard different stories about the manifest. When I testified at the Pennsylvania Senate hearing, I believe it was the first hearing that took place through Governor Mastriano over in Pennsylvania, because he heads the emergency response committee for PA. I think it was the first 10 or 15 minutes of the hearing. They discussed that there was missing and or mislabeled cargo on the manifest.
Oh,
I
wow.
do not know if that was ever cleared up. But just to hear those words, that's absolutely terrifying, because if there was mislabeled cargo, what was really burning?
Yeah.
That's what I've questioned since the day of that hearing. Yeah. I know Sunday, when our phones went off, it's the emergency alert. I don't know if I'm sure you guys have had Amber Alerts on your phone. That shrieking, piercing sound that just cuts into your entire being and wakes you up in the middle of the night if an Amber Alert is going off. That's what the sound of the emergency alert. When we got the notice on our phones of catastrophic failure, basically screaming at you, get the hell out of your house now, you have to leave now. That's one of those moments that I'm going to have forever burned into my mind. At that time, my son was actually here at the house because we were trying to gather clothes and like throw stuff into cars so we could get out. We didn't know how long we were going to be gone. So he was here, he came back here, and he was throwing, clothes into bags. My husband, my poor husband, he's trying to put dog food into a Ziploc bag. And I screamed at him to just take the whole container. And we were just kind of laugh about it now, because you don't know how long you're going to be out of your house. And I screamed at him to throw the whole container in his truck. And we were in such a rush when that emergency alerts went off on our phones. that when we were leaving our driveway, I actually backed into my son's car.
Yeah.
I was hysterically crying, and I backed into his car. And
Well,
you know,
I mean,
I kind of laugh about it at the moment, because it's one of those moments that my son's almost 21, and you know, you're almost 21, and your car is one of your prized possessions. And yeah, I really screwed up as a mom because I backed into his car that night.
I
Yeah,
wouldn't say that, because
yeah,
I'm sure there are plenty of people who, when they look down and their phone says, "Get out of this possible catastrophic bomb
yeah,
area," that some people are going to freak out.
yeah. I was definitely, I was I was losing it mentally. I couldn't take much more of that. Yeah, I could. And like, I look back now, and I don't know how I made it through. I honestly, I don't know how I made it through that weekend. Um, I've had a few other moments in the last month here that I don't know how I got, like, I don't know how I got here, if that makes sense. I've lost mentally, I've lost time. I'm still having a hard time, like, comprehending that a little over a month has gone by, right? It's been over a month and a week.
Mm.
Um, trauma messes with you. It messes with your mind. Um,
Well, and it's the really shitty part of it is you guys are seeing no relief in sight either.
none.
It's like we were talking about earlier, it's like a nightmare you're living every day, and it's not getting any better.
It's not. Um, I don't know. The people that are helping are everyday citizens, everyday human beings are the ones that are reaching out, that are helping. Um, we've been failed by our governor, Governor DeWine, Ohio. Um, it just amazes me. It just amazes me, the bullshit that we are living in. We should have been declared a disaster that night, Friday night. We should have been we should have been declared, with the amount of chemicals that were burning that weekend, the entire weekend. I've read that the amount of chemicals that were released into the air, the water, the soil, is twice the amount that's like a legal limit in the entire country. Our entire country for 1 year is twice the amount of chemicals the legal limit were released within, basically, what, a 5-day period, maybe just say a week.
That is
and
crazy.
and we're not a disaster. We're fine. Breathe the air, drink the water, you're fine. Just,
I'm going to see if I can find that.
yeah.
Yeah, one of the truly sickening things has been these photo ops by these governors. Like, there was that one where they were in somebody's house and then pretended to drink.
They
I'm gonna say
drank the
pretended
water.
because I don't believe for an instant that they actually drank the tap.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, what the hell is up with that show? Like,
I don't know.
that doesn't even make any sense. Lonnie, early on in that Senate trial or hearing,
The one that I gave my testimony.
yeah, there was, in fact, there was the first guy who spoke. He was in a neighboring township, but over the border in PA, I believe.
Yes.
He had mentioned some interaction with with somebody from Norfolk Southern. I don't know what this guy's role was supposed to be, but he made a mention that this guy from Norfolk Southern claimed that, yeah, we have money and we are.
Yes.
I
remember the testimony. Yes.
And yeah, and the excuse for not giving money to help him was because he was outside of the evacuation zone. But what about you and Kat and those who are in the evac zone?
I can say for myself. So that Sunday morning, when I went to the park to go to speak to Norfolk Southern, to their assistance center, um, I was probably one of the first people there, and I asked if I could just stand to the side and listen to what the questions that they were asking, and right away, so this would have been so it derailed on the 3rd, so this would have been Sunday, February 5th, that morning. I stood off to the side listening to questions, and I just wanted to hear the answers that the representatives were telling the residents. And one of the first things I realized was you would have to fill out a W-9, I believe it's called, and they wanted our social security numbers. And it hit me immediately that we were going to become a tax write-off for them. And I had a very difficult time with that. Yeah.
Well, weren't they also, when they were trying to do the initial inspections of homes, weren't they trying to make you guys sign a waiver
Yeah. Yes.
that
The
wouldn't hold them
initial.
liable for?
Yes. It's just crazy. It's just absolutely crazy. We had to sign basically you had to sign a form allowing them to come in and do the air quality testing in your home or your business. And the way that worked out for my family, we were divided. I had to be at my shop. It was just kind of coincidence. I don't know, coincidence or planned, that I couldn't be here at the home with my husband. Our scheduled times ended up at the same time, and I was divided and had to be at my business for that air quality testing, and my husband had to be here at home to have it done by another monitor, another tester. Yeah, that really bothered me too. But you had to sign a waiver. You had to put your name on a piece of paper stating it was okay for them to come into your business. And then I found out afterwards that there was a certain form. They pulled it and they said, no, we gave them the wrong forms. But at the bottom of it, it's stated that you were basically, you couldn't hold Norfolk Southern responsible.
Yeah, it said it indemnified them or something from any responsibility.
Yes.
Yeah. Because I saw it on, I can't remember what news show I saw it on.
Yeah.
Or maybe it was something on YouTube, and I saw that and I'm like, I think
Glenn Beck might have had the one couple on there. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, that's where it's Caitlin and
yes.
Yeah.
From the dog kennel. Yeah.
And they were on Tucker too, weren't they?
I think so. Yeah. It's just crazy. But I chose not to speak to anyone at the Norfolk Southern Assistance Center after I found out that we would have to give them our information and fill out a W-9. And yeah, that they were just going to use this as a tax write-off. It's pretty shitty. That's I'm sorry, but
No, you're right. Well, everything they've done from even before it derailed, with the what is it, precision railroad scheduling or something like that, where they get as many cars as they can on a long track as they can with as few people as possible, and then they overlook all this NTSB stuff.
Yeah, and you guys are aware that yeah, so that would have been Saturday. You guys are going to get to hear the train. See if you guys can hear it.
Yep.
There it is.
Yeah.
And you said that's got a special meaning for you now.
Yeah. There was a time that my family we loved watching the trains go through, because our son Like his first birthday was a Thomas the Train birthday themed birthday party. We he grew up. We took him, like over into PA, Beaver, Pennsylvania. There's lots of train bridges, and you can watch the trains cross the river and head into, Conway Yards. He grew up loving trains. He could sit here at our front living room window, and he learned all the car names. That's a tanker, a box car, double stack, trailer train. He knew them all. We actually have a train that runs around our living room. We have a shelf that runs around our living room downstairs, and it has Lionel trains on it. So we were a train family at one time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now we cringe.
And
Yeah.
it's hard for people to understand because unless you've been through something like that, like we were talking earlier, the only thing I could get to relate to is just thinking of something terrible that happened that created a memory trigger in me. Every time I heard that, I'm looking around like, is everything okay?
Yeah. The one thing, yeah, I've been diagnosed with PTSD due to a traumatic, the traumatic event, the train derailing. I go this week for my first counseling session. I know that while I was gone away from my house, there were moments that I felt like I would never see my home again.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I came back, probably within the first 2.5 days, I had memories that I must have blocked out. I was completely blocking things out, almost like bits of amnesia in a way. I must have
Repressed memories.
Yeah, I was repressing. I was burying it deep down as far as I could, trying to block it out. The night that the train derailed, and this isn't widely discussed. The night the train derailed, a second train was coming into town, heading in the same direction, heading into Pennsylvania. And I have pictures of the second train. I have one picture of the second train. It was a coal train. I don't know if you guys are aware of that. I stood in my living room that night when I heard the engine blow the horn. I screamed at the top of my lungs to my husband, "Oh my God, there's a second train." And I heard the horn, and I could hear the screeching of the brakes. And that train had to have stopped basically right in front of our house. So we're roughly 1,800 feet from the derailment. So that's how close the second train was.
So it doesn't sound like they had any idea.
I do not believe so. I do not believe so. I vividly can hear all of that, and I replay it in my mind daily. Since I returned home here, and when I'm standing in my living room, I have a very difficult time hearing those train horns. Yeah.
It's a literal reminder of
Yes.
your world just shattering.
Yes. And no one is talking about the second train. If that second train, 2 more seconds, that second train would have collided. It would have crashed into the derailment as well. I know that he was able to stop, and he was able to back the train up. And the one photo that I have, I pulled off of one of our East Palestine pages. I don't know who the resident was that took that photo. it's a beautiful photo. It's a beautiful photo in the fact that you can see the fires burning down the tracks and the derailment, and you realize that so many more lives, lives, we were so lucky. We were so lucky that people were not killed that night. But I have that constant feeling that if that second train didn't get stopped, so it would have been catastrophic that night. It would have been, yeah.
And yeah, it's probably just about guaranteed, because if
just the kinetic energy alone would have.
Yeah, it would have pushed it right up into those vinyl chloride tanks, and then
yeah. Like, I don't know who the person was that took that photo, but I look at it now on my phone, and I'm truly thankful that they were able to stop that engine and stop that train, because we were in our home, and just, sorry guys.
It's fine.
Yeah, I'm very thankful that they were able to stop that train.
Hey, do you remember about how long it was that second train came?
Oh my. It was there within, I want to say, the first 35 minutes, because we were still here trying to figure out how to get my son in his car and get what we were doing. We were trying to figure out what we were doing, if we were all leaving together or if we were just going to take every car that we have.
See, that blows my mind, because is that normal protocol to let, like, the train should have, the second train, the conductor should have known, hey, there's a massive derailment up here and a huge fire all over the tracks.
You wouldn't
Where
think
was the dispatcher on this? Like, there's
you wouldn't you wouldn't think that train would have been able to get this close. Like, what was happening at that moment, and that's not being discussed. It's being overlooked, or it's being silenced. It's not being talked about. But I am a witness. I know what I heard that night, because I screamed it at the top of my lungs. Oh my God, there's a second train. And I have the photo that someone posted on one of our East Palestine pages from, I believe it was taken from the overhead bridge that looks down the tracks, in this direction. And at that moment, from when that picture was taken, that second train was backed up. It was away from the derailment. It was a hell of a lot closer that night, because he had to have stopped, or whoever the engineer was, they had to have literally stopped right in front of my house, literally, like, right here, I believe, within 1,800 feet of the derailment.
Yeah, that's either extreme. It was either planned to get that close, or extreme negligence. Because how bad does your infrastructure have to be, especially regarding just simple communications with the technology that we have? How bad does it have to be to where a train that's 20, 30 minutes away, which is probably what, at least 10 miles?
Yeah, well, I think they did. I thought I read somewhere that they typically go about 50-ish coming through your town, or is that?
Yeah, I want to say that it's around 50 to 60 miles an hour, and they should not be going that fast through our town.
Yeah, that's right. I remember somebody somewhere was complaining about, like, why do they have to go that fast? It should be like,
they should have
I don't know,
crawl
25
through.
or less, something more reasonable going through a residential area.
25 tops.
Yeah,
Especially hauling chemicals. toxic chemicals.
Avoiding those kind of chemicals, I'm thinking that from now on it should be limited to like 5 miles per hour.
It's just, you know.
Just, oh my goodness.
But yeah, that's something that I thought maybe you guys, if you guys want to dig into that more, it's not being widely discussed about the second train.
I mean, I would love to get a hold of that engineer of the second train and be like, how do you feel?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I'm assuming that he didn't know and just, but you would think that if you were warned, you would have just gone ahead and stopped. There's no reason to bring it that close. They're you know, on purpose. So I'm thinking he got caught off guard.
And I know I repressed that. I buried that somewhere in my mind. And it wasn't until I came back home. I tried to stay away as long as I possibly and financially could. And then I was testifying. I agreed to testify at the one Senate hearing, and I wanted to be here with my husband and my son prior to doing that. And it wasn't until I came back home and was standing in my living room again that and then hearing the train go by, it triggered that memory. And yeah, that set off a whole panic attack in itself. That, yeah.
So since the Senate hearing and since the derailment, the cleanup, the repairs and more trains running through and everyone's back home now, what have they told you as far as what they're going to do for the residents of East Palestine and their future?
We've been told that if we don't feel safe in our home during this cleanup, that you can go to the Norfolk Southern Assistance Center, and they're going to help you. I believe it's $1,000 a week to help pay for a hotel stay, or maybe if you had to rent a house, or yeah, I think it's $1,000 a week. So like $1,000 for my husband and myself to rent a hotel room. And I believe since my son would need his own hotel room, it would basically $1,000 for him for a week. But you have to save all your receipts. And then you go back the following week, bring them your receipts to get reimbursed for that. And it's just a vicious cycle. And you're spending an entire day of your life going to this assistance center, traveling back and forth, bringing them your receipts for, you know, your food or, you know, anything that you might need while you're away from your home. And it really pisses me off because you're taking more of your life. You're losing more of your life having to travel and go to their assistance center.
Yeah, they should be following you guys around.
They should be coming to our house, knocking door to door, asking, what do we need? And that's not happening. You have to go to them. And they've already taken so much of my life. They have taken so much of my life in the last month and a half now. I don't want to have to go to an assistance center and sit there and feel like I'm groveling for money. Like I'm begging for them to help me get moved out of my own home. It pisses me off. It pisses me off. It angers me to no end.
It shouldn't be like you guys should be right now be weighted on hand and foot by Norfolk Southern.
And you know, people in our town live paycheck to paycheck. We are not a wealthy community. We are not. $1,000 is a lot of money. It is a lot of money. And it just, I don't know. It really bothers me. I have yet to go to the assistance center. Everything is on our credit card. From our evacuation stay, everything's on the credit card. We have receipts, you know, for food, because if you stay at a hotel, you can't cook.
Mm.
You know, if you stay at an Airbnb, the Airbnb that we landed in, the kitchen, it was a beautiful home, but the kitchen was under remodel. So we were lucky we found a place to stay that allowed our dogs, but the kitchen was under remodel. So it didn't even have a working sink. I couldn't wash my hands in the sink. It was just,
Wow.
we were thankful to have a roof over our heads and have a bed to sleep in, and a safe place for our son, you know, our family to stay in. There's lots of different stories. So many stories. I was just thankful to have a roof over my head. But yeah, you can't cook when you're staying at a hotel, so you're forced to eat out breakfast, lunch, and dinner. What kind of life is that? And we don't know. They said cleanup could be a month to 2 months. We don't know how long we're going to be away from our home if we choose to leave again.
Yeah. Goodnight brings up a good point. He says, when you're demoralized, you're less likely to advocate for yourself. And he's right. Do you guys have a lawyer, or is there a law firm that's representing you guys as a community, or anything like that?
There's many attorneys. We've yet to choose one as a family. We have one that we have our eyes on. But yeah, I've yet to choose one for myself. It's not just our family, but I also own a local business. And I can tell you, our town is never going to be the same. We'll never be the same. We are scarred. They have scarred my hometown.
I don't think anyone in that town should be living there. I think you guys should have been evacuated, and they should have paid for you to live somewhere else, because you're right that you're not going to be able to escape it.
No, we're not. And the thing is, you know, my family has lived in our home for 30 years. And we've done so much work, and we've put our blood, sweat, and tears into this house to make it our own. You know, we added an addition to our house. We built a 2-car garage. We paid our mortgage. Our home was paid off. And now you start looking at houses to try to find something that's comparable, and everything is 3 and 4 times the amount of money. And you know, we're not spring chickens.
Well,
I'm gonna be 47 in May, and to think about taking on a mortgage again for another 30 years. This was going to be, you know, our house was paid off. This was part of our retirement plan, and now our plan is totally yeah. And I know we're one of the lucky ones. You know, we busted our asses for the last 30 years to make sure that our house was paid off. And now we're back to square one. Because this house is not worth what it was on February 2nd. No.
No. There's no way you'll.
No.
Like I said, I think that the whole town itself, it's like you've just been put into the meat grinder, and once you get out, they just put you right back in it.
Yeah.
And then they're just seeing how long the meat lasts.
And every part of our life, every single waking moment is consumed by them. And I fucking hate that. I hate that they've taken my life, my family's life, my friends, my business. that I busted my ass for to keep running during COVID because the state of Ohio, Governor DeWine, shut down the entire state of Ohio for COVID, but he won't help us when it's a chemical disaster that people compared to basically nuking our town with chemicals, a mini Chernobyl, and he won't do anything to help us. It is infuriating. And I'm getting to the point where something has to be done. Something has to change. We've been failed over and over and over again. And I know people can only take so much.
Yeah, I was. That's another thing I talked to Kat about. Is it? I would be going insane right now. Like if I was there in my situation and my kids were there, I would be losing my mind.
Yeah. And I know many families say they won't return. They've basically left whatever was in the home. They just left it, took the basics, what they could use to get by, and they just left. I've been trying to prepare mentally in case, because you can't trust them. You cannot trust them. And I don't know how anybody is right now, because we've been lied to from the very first night, being told that the air was fine. They say that the water is fine, but the fish are dead in the water, in the creeks and the streams. Yeah. Who's to say that they're not going to come in and say and condemn the whole town? They could.
Did I ask you about if you'd heard the story about that town in Missouri?
Yeah. I have a friend in Missouri. I'm very familiar with Times Beach, Missouri. Yes.
Yeah. For people in chat and watching, if you know Times Beach, they didn't have paved roads. It was gravel, right? Was it gravel or dirt?
Gravel and dirt.
And I used to live on dirt, right? So when you dropped it, like it kicks the dust up all the time. And was it the government sent a tanker in, and it was like a type of oil chemical, but what they didn't know was it had phosgene in it.
Yes.
And they sprayed the entire town's roadways with this phosgene oil mix, and supposedly didn't know that the phosgene was in there until it had already spread, and it completely ruined the whole town. And this is just from one truck
and
spreading it on the road in a controlled
yes.
manner.
Yes. So it seeped into the soil, into their water.
Mm-hmm.
So it worked its way through the soil into their water systems. Basically condemning the whole town. Yes.
What was the stated purpose of that?
To keep the dust down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I lived on the dirt road, that's what the guy at the end of the road, because he had a junkyard, he would take used oil, and spread it across the dirt, and it would keep it from kicking up dust clouds all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, I just don't understand why you can't just do it with a water truck, but okay.
Yeah.
So we did on construction. I mean, yeah, but I don't know. That's just what we did in construction. When I worked construction, you tear up the ground, it gets dusty when it dries up, and you normally just had a water truck driving around all day, every day, keeping it moist. But that's the first I ever heard of using oil instead.
Yeah. Who's to say that they're not going to come in and do that here? Because if you go on EPA.gov's website, because I've been on there many times, and halfway down, I think it's the first page, if you guys want to check it out, it states on there, you type in East Palestine train derailment, halfway down, first page, one of the things you can click on, it discusses about Superfund site. and you start clicking around on that and opening pages and reading and diving into it on all the information. And I know it's pertained to the soil and the chemicals that are in the soil that they're supposed to be cleaning up. Another train, if you could hear that.
Anybody get a time on those two? I'm just curious as to what kind of gap they have.
Those ones were far apart. Those two were far apart. Prior to
that was
this,
probably about 20
I want to say
minutes.
they would run through like every 10 to 15 minutes prior to this happening.
Yeah, I thought I read somewhere that as part of that, like, that precise management system, whatever that they're using, that part of that was also getting them with smaller gaps between the trains. And I'm just thinking about that because of the second train that could have been a disaster.
Yeah. But yeah, if back to the super fund, I know it pertains to the soil and the chemicals that are in the soil. But if you guys want to, nose around on the EPA's page, that really freaks me out, because who's to say they're not going to declare the 1 mile or the 2 mile zone around the derailment and the soil and declare us a Superfund site? Because I would lose my house. My sister would probably lose her house. I would lose my business because my business is within the 1 mile zone as well. And that absolutely terrifies me. And all of my friends and family that are here. What would you do?
That definitely get the lawyers ready, because they will try to give you the cheapest outcome they can.
Yes.
100%.
Yeah.
If something like that were to occur,
is the only way you're getting anything out of this, I think, is just through
the
legal system.
You have to have representation. You need help. You need help. And I haven't found the right one yet. I have someone in mind, but it's so difficult. It's so difficult. You should, never in a million years. And this all could have been prevented. You guys know that train car was on fire in Salem, Ohio. They had time to stop that train before it came here.
Yeah, the what's his name? Voice of the People and I were looking at the sensor data. All three sensors or these hotbox detectors were functioning. They did give back temperature readings, and I don't know why their threshold was so high. And it looks like it just missed it by 2 degrees to set off an alarm.
Yeah.
And I'm like, but the thing was on fire, so that tells me that your set point's a little off. Like, if it's already on fire, then that means that you should be trying to detect it at a much lower temp.
It's just negligence.
I'm like 115 degrees above ambient, and it detected 113 degrees above ambient.
Just, yeah. They had plenty of time to stop that train.
And
and then of course there's the multiple phone calls for 20 miles of people who saw it and
yes, captured on a couple of the cameras, the businesses located in Salem.
Good night, trust the sensor science. You funny.
Yeah, and then the one residential that was released. I think it was off of her Ring camera or one of her security cameras on her home. That I think that came out. She put that out on, I think it was Saturday, because all those reports were coming in on social media and on Facebook and TikTok of the train, of it being on fire as it rolled through New Waterford, Ohio, which is the next town over from us. Small little community too. Yeah. But so basically, the reports of the dead fish and the creeks and the streams were coming out around the same time as that TikTok video. Everything, it's amazing what social media can do.
Yep.
It really is, because the truth is going to come to light. They need to just tell us the truth from the beginning, because I've joked about this a couple of times. You know, East Palestine is a small town, and small town people talk. We talk. Everybody knows each other. Everyone knows each other. Everybody's family in one way or another, whether you're family by blood or you're family friends and you adopt them as family, you know.
The shitty part is, how much truth have we seen come out in the past 10, 15 years, and
Yeah.
especially in the last 5 years?
Yeah.
And you have, your system is so corrupt that
Oh,
the
it's
people responsible for those
yeah.
things never have to pay any kind of penance for it.
Oh, I have a feeling it's coming. That's just me.
I I
I think it's coming.
anytime I think about what happened, all I can think about is what's going to happen in 5 years. What's going to happen in 10 years? Because this is stuff like this doesn't come out immediately as far as how it affects you personally. Like, the chemical bronchitis and the exposure from that, yes, that's an immediate effect. It
Yeah.
doesn't take into account the 5, 10, 15 years later, when those
And
chemicals set in your body and these radical agents deteriorate your internal organs or cells
we'll
and cause cancers or something like that. And
we'll have
that's,
yeah. We'll have cancer clusters in our town, and everybody will say, you know, it's because of the chemicals from the derailment, and then the
mm.
government will say no, and that couldn't be. Your air was fine, your water was fine.
Did
Yeah.
as far as the people in the town, did a lot of people go and get their health records updated?
I know many have. I personally, I believe it was February 10th when I was able to get into a doctor. I've had I have a baseline now for my blood work and everything. And that doctor, actually, he was probably one of the very first ones. Um, because when I told him that I was sheltered in place during the train derailment and was asking about specialized blood work for, the different chemicals and everything, and he said, there's really no tests for vinyl chloride. And then I said, well, I'm not just asking about vinyl chloride. I was asking about other heavy metal chemicals for that exposure. And he did order, he had to go and look on his system, on his computer system at the office, and he was probably one of the first doctors that placed an order for specialized blood work for the chemicals. um, and I'm still currently waiting. A couple of the results came back yesterday. I'm still waiting, I think, for like 3 or 4 more to come back, so I have a baseline.
Mhm.
um Yeah, it's crazy. It's so crazy. Just even talking about that, like, you have to have a baseline for your blood work. So what's it going to be at a year from now?
Mhm.
Yeah.
I told my mom to go get it done, and she lives in West Virginia.
Oh, good,
And
good. Where does she live in West Virginia? Do you mind me asking?
she lives in the northwestern part.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
so she's not too far away.
Uh,
I
yeah.
mean, she's like at the closest point
She's,
in West Virginia that you can get.
Mm.
yeah. Yeah. Go get it
Yeah.
done. Go get it done. Um, yeah. I can tell you that I sheltered, not sheltered. The home that we escaped to was an Airbnb home, was located in East Liverpool, Ohio. And the day after the controlled burn, I had, there was fallout on my car, and I was in East Liverpool, Ohio.
It was probably the acid rain.
That
I'm
yes,
guessing. Yeah.
yes, and I have pictures of that. I believe it was from the acid rain. And a dear friend of mine lives across the river in Chester, West Virginia, and she found 2 dead birds right outside her home the day after the controlled burn. So I do believe that the tri-state area and beyond is, impacted by this. Yeah.
If I may ask, what is your business? Like, what?
It's a small, it's like a variety store.
Okay.
It's like a co-op. We have different vendors, crafters, a little bit of everything really, vintage items, antiques, collectibles.
So is that what Cat is Cat one of your vendors? That's
She
okay.
is.
Okay, I
She
just pieced
is.
that together. Okay, so because I remember
Yeah.
she was speaking about that it wasn't just her store; she was like a vendor in this.
She's like a
Okay.
store within the store. She runs
Right.
her own little business within the store. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. I took over the shop about 3 months before COVID hit. So that was some really bad timing.
Wow.
Yeah. To put so much of your savings into a business and invest into a business, believing that, you're finally getting your dream come true, and then COVID hit. But I worked my ass off to get that store up and running after we were declared, they declared us non-essential, so we had to close down. For what? I believe my shop was closed for almost 3 months.
My goodness.
During the lockdowns and the closures for the state of Ohio. Yeah, I worked my ass off to keep that shop up and running. Sorry, but yeah, I did.
You're fine.
I spent many nights there until 3:00 in the morning trying to make improvements and invest time and money, because that was my dream. It still is my dream. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen with that dream.
Yeah,
I don't
the
know.
uncertainties.
It's
hard to deal. And
yeah,
I guess just one day at a time.
It is.
Yeah.
I experienced today, because since I've been back, I've shortened my hours at the shop. I have to have some hours. I have to be there because other people are counting on me, because that money is going to help their family, financially. But at the same time, I experienced today, a customer came into the shop and she almost joked about being in a toxic wasteland. She described she does not live in the area. She lives into Pennsylvania. But she stood there and it felt like she was joking, trying to make a joke, which was in very bad taste, by the way. It was like a stab in my chest. I couldn't breathe when she was saying this to me. But she said, I visited a toxic wasteland today. And I'm like, thanks. This is my home.
Was this a younger woman by chance?
I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, was she younger by chance?
No.
Like, did she look like?
No.
Okay. It's not like.
She was retired, older, knew better, should have known better. People don't stop and think what you say could.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was just wondering about like the reason why I asked that, because of it seems like the younger generation everything's like an Instagram story to them.
You know,
so like I thought maybe I was wondering, like, is it one of those 20-year-old girls just trying to take a selfie in a toxic wasteland, some stupid thing like that?
No, this is someone that she should have known better. She should have known better. Because
too dark too soon.
Like,
Robert.
Wow. Just wow. So then, she left, and I actually looked at Kat because she was there when this took place today. And she was like, wow, I'm just gonna sit here and we're just gonna drink our Coke in our, in our toxic wasteland, or I'm gonna sit here and drink my coffee in our toxic wasteland. And I said, well, maybe we should just embrace this. And I actually said, we can make some decorations and decorate the front of the shop, and what the hell? Let's get some Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and decorate, and like, I don't know. Trying to make light of the situation too, and I'm just not ready for that.
That's understandable. But I mean, that could be that could be an idea. There's a grift for every situation. And
embrace it. Maybe we need to embrace it. I don't know. But it really it took it hurt my chest. It literally felt like she stabbed me in my heart, because this has been my home for 30 years. I basically grew up in East Palestine too, because my family lives right across the state line in Pennsylvania, and we always came to East Palestine to shop, to buy groceries, to go to the local 5 and 10, because we didn't have a Dollar General, back in the early 80s. We didn't have Dollar General here. We had a Newberry's 5 and 10, the cute little variety store. We always visited the local dairy mill to get our ice cream. That was our big treat as a family on a Friday night. This is my town. This is my town. I might have been born and raised in Pennsylvania, but East Palestine has always been my home. And to have someone tell you that it's a toxic wasteland right now, just, don't insult my town like that. We had a horrible thing happen. To us that should have never happened. And I pray never happens to another community or, a big city, because it could happen anywhere. This could happen anywhere.
It literally can. When I started looking at this story, the first thing I was reminded of was there was a chemical explosion in Beirut, and somebody clipped it or got it on camera, and it was quite spectacular. So it's the whole like controlled burn thing, like if there was really like an explosion risk or nothing or not, but that's what I was thinking. Like, well, if you're avoiding like that kind of explosion where like a half-mile radius, everything's just leveled. I can understand the attempt at trying to avoid that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I just like the results. There's no, you can't. It's going to be really hard to convince me that this was not botched, at least to some degree. Okay, maybe you didn't have the half-mile radius explosion. All right, so everybody's still alive, but they're all suffering terribly, and will be long suffering. You can't compare the two. I don't know.
And I know the video you're speaking of now. I know, because I've seen that video. And to sit here and know that could have taken place any moment from the moment of impact, the derailment on, Friday, February 3rd at roughly 9:00 that night, that we could have had an explosion like that here and no one came to evacuate us. That is so criminal. And I have no words. because we were told to shelter in place. So if that would, if people would have been in their home sheltering in place, and that basically would have been one of the largest bombs to go off. Were they waiting for that to happen? Did they want that to happen? You have these thoughts go through your mind. I don't know.
The real nail in the coffin for Norfolk is the NTSB said this was 100% preventable. Wasn't it the NTSB or
I believe so.
There's no such thing as like freak industrial accidents. And whenever I've worked in industrial facilities for quite a while now, there's like annual safety briefings, and it's always what it's led with, is that all accidents are preventable. And there are people whose specialty is reviewing accidents and figuring out how do we prevent this from happening again.
I pray it never happens again.
As far as this, there were so many points of failure. One, okay, the axle bearing. It'd be cool to see the maintenance records there, and why, how old is that bearing that it seized up. Like generally bearings don't just seize up in the middle of their life. It's normally at the very beginning because they were kind of faulty off the factory line, or when they're near end of life, and your maintenance schedule is supposed to be preventing that from seizing up and causing fires by replacing it before it gets there. And
didn't this particular car, wasn't it pulled? Didn't they work on it prior to, if I'm not mistaken, I read a report. I want to say, was it Illinois?
I believe I remember seeing something like that the car had been scheduled,
or something was wrong with it then, and they didn't pull it off and put it on a siding to be checked or addressed at a later date. They just let it roll on through Ohio.
Yeah, leaked audio reveals U.S. rail workers were told to skip inspections as Ohio crash prompts scrutiny to industry.
Yeah, I'm not 100% certain on that, but I thought I read at one point.
Yeah.
That.
All right, we got to pull this up.
Yeah, that that car, that something triggered, that they should have taken that car.
Yeah. Employee says manager told her to stop marking cars for repair. So yeah, it makes it's not that hard to take a leap and say, yeah, this was probably just skipped for the PSR bullshit convenience. And it specifically, let's see, in leaked audio heard by The Guardian, a manager for one of the U.S.'s largest rail companies can be heard explaining to a former carman that they should stop tagging rail cars for broken bearings.
Bearings, specifically the bearings. Huh?
Yeah, specifically. That's fucking ridiculous. The manager says doing so delays other cargo.
I don't understand when like an upper level manager makes these kind of decisions. A lot of times these upper level managers don't have stock in the company. Or at least mid-level doesn't.
They do have.
Like you're talking, like if you're on the board, yes. But I know there's a level, like when you reach like a executive vice president or something, and then if you're on the board, then yeah, you typically have some sort of tie to stock price on your salary. But a lot of but when you see like mid-level and lower, for sure, if like not to say that it excuses it, but I get what the incentive is when your salary's tied to the stock. It's a bad incentive structure, and it shouldn't be that way. But I would want to know if he had some sort of stock option or something that's a part of that.
I don't think it has to necessarily be that, because most managers get salary bonuses based on any savings that they make.
That's fair. The bonuses, yeah, that's a fair point. Just flat bonuses, not necessarily tied to stock, and that's usually part of a performance rating, and they tend to just use very basic metrics for measurement of, it's just like how many deliveries did you have, and so it doesn't even account for, there's just nothing that tells them, hey, let's you got to mitigate the risk, like you got to do things to mitigate risk of catastrophe. And if that's not on a manager's mind, he's going to make bad decisions. Yeah.
I think I read somewhere when I was staying at the Airbnb in East Liverpool, because I was diving headfirst into anything that I could find that had to do, with the derailment, with the rail line. I think I read somewhere that $45 million a day rolls through East Palestine.
Yeah. Yeah, they had a huge financial incentive to get that railroad or railway back on track
and back open. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they were losing money, I'd like break that down by the second. How much money were they losing a second by it not being open?
If they don't hit these guys and just bury them, then I'm sorry. It's like I was saying earlier, when your system is so corrupted that people don't have to pay a price for extreme malfeasance, because it seriously looks like just for them wanting to make more money and get stocks going up and get their percentage gain each year, record profits, it led to this, and it is 100% preventable. And then they come back, and the way the town is, their first priority is getting the rail cars off the track and get the track back open.
Hold on here. Record profits, but they can't be bothered to fix bearings.
Yeah.
Just
it's that doesn't.
It's like car recall stuff. It's like, what are we going to have to pay more for?
Yeah.
I actually just got a recall on my car this week.
And
they're scheduled 2 months out, so I hope that piece doesn't break in my car while I'm traveling.
So in my mind, how many of these cars that are rolling through my town right now, how many need serviced? How many need things repaired?
And that probably explains why there are 1,200 derailings every year.
And
I heard 1,700.
Basically 3 a day.
Yeah.
3 a day.
12? Okay. Yeah. It's at least 3 a day. It's ridiculous.
At least 3 a day. And nothing,
the
maybe
fact that
not
it's daily,
comparable to this one,
Right. But just the fact that it's daily is how is that acceptable?
It's unacceptable. Do we allow 3 airplanes to fall out of the sky a day?
Well, and even then, like, even if they were going to do that, you would think they would have a priority list. Like, okay, yeah, this is just carrying wood and lumber and metal parts. Like, okay, at least prioritize the stuff that's carrying toxic chemicals.
Yeah, and not stack them, 20 together and one after the other. Why are they allowed to do that? Why are they allowed to have tanker after tanker? About a week ago, I'll send you the photo. There was a train that rolled through our town as I was leaving the shop the one afternoon. I stopped into the shop to check on things and make sure everything was safe and, still okay at the shop. And as I was leaving, I had to cross the, we call it, the train bridge at the one end of town here. You use that when the trains have the crossings blocked. That train had to have had over 150 tankers, one after the other.
Yeah, like 2-mile long cars with 2 people on them, maybe 3.
Yes. And there's photos. People were taking photos of that train. And that just makes your heart go into the pit of your stomach, because if a train like that is carrying, chemical after chemical, and it derails again, and that's, over 150 cars of chemicals, tanker cars of chemicals.
Well, just those 5 cars, it was 900,000 gallons of vinyl chloride.
Yeah, you might as well say 1 million, because
Yeah.
with the other and plus million plus, because of all the other chemicals that were in the other tanker cars, and the and then there was, I believe there was the auto racks that carry the cars and the trucks. There's burn up carcasses of the brand new vehicles that were on an auto rack, I believe. I think they were electric vehicles. That's not being discussed.
Imagine that.
Lithium batteries,
so those
like,
were,
oh my gosh, and those
were, the lithium batteries that were burning. Yeah, and that
Crash.
probably, and think about all the metal, just the metal.
Check private.
The metal that was burning.
You're good. Go ahead. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah. I know that since I came back home, I've had a metallic taste in my mouth. There's days that it's more, it's worse. If I try to spend any time outside for a length of time, like I was trying to clean my garage. I think it was Tuesday or Wednesday this week. Just throwing stuff away, just bagging it, throwing it away. We have an attic above our garage. I spent probably 2 hours in the attic. I tasted metal all night. You could lick your lips. You could have that metallic taste.
Mm.
Yeah.
That's. I think I still think you guys are being exposed to a ridiculous level to chemicals.
I believe so.
Lonnie.
Yeah.
I have some family stuff I got to take care of. But you are welcome to stay on with Crash. You can talk as long as you want. Do not hold back. And
yeah, I appreciate you guys so very much for wanting to talk, because I haven't spoke to many people. I did the Senate hearing. I did that for my mom and my uncle that live in Pennsylvania, because they were underneath the chemical fallout and no one came to help them. I was trying to speak out for my mom and my uncle and the ones that are being forgotten. And I was approached yesterday to begin a docu-series that will be aired in June. And it's an investigative docu-series. But I appreciate you guys so very much for wanting to listen to my story, listen to my family's story.
I don't care if we do this show for the next year about just a new resident each week. Like, I think this is one of the most important stories that should be out there right now, because of what is happening to you guys. An entire town is still being basically steeped like a tea bag into this chemical nightmare.
Like,
and it's ridiculous.
It's reminiscent of, like, for me, the Tuskegee experiments. Like, whether it was on purpose like that or not, it feels like that. Like, it's getting the same result, where they're just basically it's like you're being experimented on with all these chemicals, and they're not doing anything to help. And just, I mean, keep an eye out. If anybody starts asking for, like, your health records from the government, I'm gonna start thinking that there's worse than just malfeasance here.
And I guarantee this is the lawyer mind approach to it too. Is like, well, there's not any major health issues right now.
There is right now, though.
Yeah.
We have people that are mentally and physically suffering.
Yeah.
And and like Kat and her husband Travis, she was one of the first ones, I believe one of the first ones to be diagnosed with chemical bronchitis. And then for them to do a press conference and state that there's no health issues in East Palestine. That's just
Yeah.
like,
Well,
yeah.
as much as the government tries to glorify some of the mental illness that's taken over certain quadrants of our culture, when people genuinely have health issues, not just mentally, but physically as well, and they brush it under the rug because, oh well, basically I see it as them looking at, well, they're not dying.
Yeah.
That's seriously how I feel about it. As sad as that is to say, because and
Yeah.
That's a meme that could be put out there. I mean, that actually is a meme. But did you die? Like, you could
Yeah.
totally make that into a
Like,
relatable one for East Palestine.
Would this have gotten more attention if people did die February 3rd?
I hate to say it, but personally, my speculation is yes.
That
it would have gotten a
whole
more
yes.
immediate response.
Yes, I believe so
and
too.
entirely just because there's no choice. You can't just let corpses sit there.
And
I
then
mean, at this
yeah.
point though, like, the government keeps surprising me. It would not surprise me if in 2023, if some other disaster happened and they just kind of, and people did die and they just, I don't know. I don't know if they can surprise me anymore.
Yeah, I don't. Oh, I'd like to say that. I would like to say nothing will surprise me, but
Yeah.
I waited all weekend long. That weekend, I kept waiting to see somewhere on TV, breaking news, East Palestine, Ohio, train derailment. Oh my gosh, focus 24/7, have that be on every channel. The way that, like, I think back to Hurricane Katrina or the Exxon Valdez from when I was a child, and that was covered 24/7. That's what we saw on our TV nonstop. There was nothing. There was nothing about us.
I wonder if it's an insurance thing from the news outlets where they don't want to send people there because of the potential for health damage to health later.
Well, that's something that I heard this week, that if you live in East Palestine, that you no longer can get health, or you can no longer get life insurance. I heard that from someone. Wow. I do not know if that is true.
Yeah, that would be something to look into.
Yeah, that's terrifying. But okay, so check that one off. You can't get life insurance anymore. Yeah. I don't know, guys. That's my new motto. I don't know, and it's a mess. I have no answers.
It's beyond a mess, for sure.
It's beyond a mess.
Lonnie, I've got to hop out. It was great talking to you.
Thank you for listening.
With you. No problem at all. I'll catch up with you later. Crash is he's gonna handle everything from here. You go ahead and you keep talking about whatever you want to talk about. Okay.
I'll send you guys when we finish. I'll send you guys some of those pictures that I personally took. So if you want to share them, you feel free to share them however you want to.
Oh, I'm gonna post it all over Twitter as soon as you do and say, hey, this was the second train that almost hit the derailed train, which was.
I do not know if I have. See, I did not take that photo.
If you've got it saved, it's fine.
Is that okay? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I pulled it off of one of the East Palestine pages that night of February 3rd when I was at my sister's home. It was posted to one of the East Palestine pages, and I saved it to my phone thinking this is really important because I heard that train. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to post that one for sure.
Okay.
That is crazy, and I have not heard anything about that.
No one is discussing the second train.
We keep finding out new stuff, Cam. Like, it's
they made it disappear.
Yeah.
They made it disappear. But I know what I heard and I know what I felt, and I'm so thankful I saved that picture to my phone. And like I said, I'm thankful for that engineer that he got that train stopped.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So,
Um,
okay.
All right, Cam.
no, you're fine. Lonnie, I'll catch up with you later, and I'm
Okay.
sure we'll talk more after this. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
All right. You
Thank
have a good
you.
night. Crash.
You
I'll see you
too.
later.
Yeah,
Guys, you keep watching, share, get like I said, get this story out there, and let's let old Crash take the wheel. I'll see y'all later.
all right. All right. How do I switch this layout?
Yeah. Seriously,
There we go.
thank you for wanting to talk. And should I turn my phone going the other way? I just realized, like, I'm not very techy, so
You could.
I don't know.
I mean, it should auto rotate and it'll fill up the whole screen. There you go.
Is that better? Okay.
Yeah. Wow.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. You're fine. I mean, I know it's easier to just kind of hold it more upright.
Yeah.
With one hand.
But yeah, yeah. I don't know. I know I'm not safe in my own home. I know I'm not safe here. This is my bedroom window behind me. One thing I can tell you, I have not slept in my own bedroom, but maybe twice since I came home. I'm terrified to sleep in my own bedroom. It's on the second story of our house. I'm terrified to sleep here. I feel like I need to be close to the door if I have to evacuate and get out of my own home again. So I haven't slept in my own bedroom, but maybe 2 nights since I came back. So maybe like the last 2 weeks I've slept here twice. And that's really crappy that you can't you don't even feel safe in your own bedroom.
Yeah. So are you just sleeping like in the living room on?
I'm sleeping on the couch. Yeah, couch or the chair. I feel like I need to be closer to the door. And I actually still have my car ready to go with a clothes basket full of clothes. I have food in another clothes basket. I have cases of water in the back in case I have to leave again. Am I ever going to feel safe and feel like I can take those items out of my car? I don't think so. I think this is the way that I'm going to live the rest of my life.
I don't know either. It's I mean, it's definitely, I mean, obviously you've already been diagnosed with it, PTSD, and I mean, I don't know if there are some like newer therapies, and I hope your therapist knows what those are, and that have like they're starting to get better on treatment of PTSD. So you know, I'm hopeful. You said you see them for the first time this week, right? This coming week.
Yes, this week, and yeah, our insurance will cover 6 visits. I look to be going a lot longer than 6 visits.
Yeah, no, it's definitely not a 6 visit deal. Hey, yeah, keep just 1 second. My cat is trying to get out my door, so I'm just gonna go ahead and let him out before he stops scratching.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's ready to go. He's heard enough of the government's bullshit. He's like, I'm out.
Yeah.
So I assume your husband is still home because he said he's never leaving, so he's never left. He's just still there.
He's home. He's downstairs. Yeah. Yeah, he's pretty much been sleeping in the recliner too.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we're both of the same opinion that way, that we just feel like we need to be closer to the door and closer to the car. It's messed up.
Yeah.
Messed up.
How about your son?
I have to tell you, my son is a rock. He is a rock. And I know he's suffering too. He's one of those, I wanna say, he's one of those stoic characters in a movie that, you know, silent. He's always been an introvert. I joke and I call him a cellar dweller because that's where his basement is, or his room is in the basement area. Um, my kid is a rock. Yeah, and he's been there for his mom. I've tried to send him away now probably a dozen times because I have friends and family all over the country, really all over the world that have offered for him to come and stay. Um, and I would very much love to just make him go, pack everything that he owns in his car and just say go, but he won't leave his mom because he knows I need him. He's one of those amazing kids. And like I said, he's my one and only, my one and only. And I'm very, very thankful that he's an amazing kid. And I know he's going to be 21, but he's a kid, you know? Yeah.
So is he, did he choose not to go a college route, or?
No, he did not. And he was actually helping me at the shop when I needed him. He was starting his own small business himself. He was selling items online on Macari. He was doing a really terrific job of that before all of this happened, starting his own business that way. When we were actually evacuated, he sold, I think, maybe like 5 or 6 items while we were away from home. So those items were here at home and we couldn't get to them because we were, staying in East Liverpool at the Airbnb. So he had to, message those people that were those customers that were purchasing items. And as soon as they heard that they were coming from East Palestine, these people were so caring and kind and reaching out to him and telling him, I still want the item. Whenever you get back home, please send me the item. And we did, after we came home, because they were all kept in plastic, Rubbermaid containers. So things should have been safe. Everything should be safe, kept clean. But yeah, those people were wonderful to him, and I'm very grateful to them because that he was still receiving some kind of income from that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We got some words from the chat. From Robert. Thanks for taking the time to tell your story, Lonnie.
Aww.
And then from Plant-Based Libertarian, this is my friend, one of my local friends, says he's praying for you and your family.
Thank you. We need all of the prayers, all of the good energy, just we need all of the prayers, all of the good energy, the good thoughts, and I know some people say that's cliche, but it's not, because when you send those positive thoughts our way, it helps us so much just to get through a day or get through an hour of our day. Yeah.
So since the Senate hearing, what has the follow-up been from the PA Senate? Do you has there been
trying,
okay.
Yeah, they were trying really, really hard over there in PA to help the Darlington area. They're the first community right across the state line. I know they were I believe setting up a health clinic, trying to get things into place because nothing was declared disaster on that side either. And like I said, my mom went all weekend before anyone came to evacuate her. That was literally, I think, within an hour before that controlled burn is when I think it was a Pennsylvania state sheriff came and knocked on her door. So we were gone maybe half an hour before they arrived at my mom's door. No one came to evacuate those people. They were failed completely too. Yeah.
And anything from the Ohio State Senate?
I think they're trying to introduce some bills to help us. I don't think they've started any investigative hearings like what was taking place in Pennsylvania.
Okay.
You're going to get to hear another train.
It's the third one tonight. There has been one. I mean, there may have been others, but I just haven't caught it. But the one Congresswoman that I've heard talk about it has been AOC.
Oh, actually. I'm sorry.
Or the one Congresswoman on the federal level that I've heard actually bring up the incident has been AOC. I haven't heard a peep from anybody else. Anybody in the chat, feel free to correct me if anybody else has tried to step up here, because I mean, on the federal, they have jurisdiction here, and they need to be more involved in what they're doing. It's ridiculous.
I don't know why. I don't know why people just won't. I don't know. And the thing is, I've heard, it's because of the way we voted. That's why we're lacking the response, because the way we voted in East Palestine, because, most of us voted for President Trump. And I did. I voted for President Trump. I'll tell you what, I had a hell of a lot more faith in our country when he was our president, but that's just my opinion. I saw the way that my business, friends' businesses, I had enough faith in our country to start my own small business, to take that leap of faith because of the way the economy was. But we don't deserve this because of the way we voted.
I can't believe people. It's like it's narcissism. They have no ability to empathize. Like imagine if Trump won, right? Or he's sitting in the White House now, and you have like a Republican majority, and it's like imagine you're a liberal, and it's everybody that you can't stand is in power, and then this train incident happened in a place like San Francisco, or it's some liberal town, or Seattle.
It can happen anywhere. It can happen anywhere.
Like, how the hell would you feel if you're if those that are responsible just decided, nope, you voted for Biden, you're a Biden region, screw you? Like, that's so terrible. Like, I would hope that people would have enough empathy to just like not care about who you voted for, and just.
It's a human issue. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what. Oh, did you hear that? That train. It really. You could hear metal on metal. It really was thumping behind me.
I did not catch that. My goodness.
Sorry.
Your ears are a little bit more sensitive to it now.
Yeah, sorry.
You're fine. You're fine.
But it's a human issue. This could happen anywhere. It could happen in any small town, big city, farmland, anywhere in our country. And it should not matter what nationality, how you vote. It shouldn't matter. It should not matter. It's a human issue. And it's criminal. It is a crime against humanity. What is happening to us and what happened to us, that we were told to shelter in place and just breathe those chemicals in. It's is a crime against humanity.
Yes.
And people need to start looking past the labels that we're told to believe in and to distrust, just I don't know. You got to start looking at people's hearts, and it's a crime. It's a crime what's happening to us. It's a crime what's going on in my town and in my family and the people that I love. And they're just getting away with it. They're just getting away with it. I don't know. Something has to happen. Something's got to give. And we shouldn't be forced to go and beg for help from the people who did this to us. And that's the way I feel right now. And yeah, we need the money. We need the money to pay that credit card bill, to pay those expenses from when we were evacuated. People live paycheck to paycheck in this town, and we're being forced to have to go and beg Norfolk Southern, the people that did this to us. We're being forced to go to their assistance center and ask for their help. If that's not fucked up, I don't know what is. I don't know what it is. I don't know. And to be told that you can just shelter in place. And they knew what chemicals were on that train. They had a manifest. They knew what was burning Friday night. And to be told to shelter in place and then find out Monday morning, I think was the first time, Monday morning when I woke up. Let's see. So Monday morning, I was actually at a hotel before we landed in the Airbnb. We spent one night at a hotel in Beaver Falls, PA. And I woke up that morning and I read about vinyl chloride. That was the first time I read about phosgene gases and how deadly they are, and that they were used in World War I. And I sat there in the hotel room and I bawled my eyes out, because I bawled like a baby, because my family sat there sheltering in place all weekend, breathing chemicals in. And then you realize that maybe those chemicals were used to kill soldiers in World War I. And no one came to tell us to leave. No one came to help us. It's just, wow. You thought the government would come to help somehow, that National Guard would get sent in to help us. Someone would be sent in to help us. It just, you lose all faith and you lose faith in the system.
I mean,
and it can happen to anybody.
Actually, Flagrant, aren't you supposed to be doing something? He says, how are your animals doing?
They were sheltered in place with us, our two dogs, Chevelle and Lincoln. So when we left and we landed in East Liverpool, Ohio, at that Airbnb that we rented, my girl, Chevelle, we call her Chevy Roo, she wasn't going to the bathroom. She was shutting down completely. She literally would not urinate. She wouldn't go to the bathroom. She went, I think the longest she went was 3 days. I was horrified that I was going to lose my girl. She's been a member of our family about seven and a half years now. And it's so horrible because you're trying to survive yourself. You're trying to take care of yourself and take care of your family. And then to see your best friend struggling too, she's my girl. They're both English shepherds, and I was terrified that I was going to lose her. Lincoln, our boy, he fared better. I think Chevy was shutting down because she had so much anxiety, being just displaced from her own home, and she's not used to being. She was forced to walk on a leash all the time. Here at our house, our yard is completely fenced in, so you open the back door and she can just run. She has free reign of her backyard. She doesn't have to be on a leash or chained. I think she was shutting down with the amount of anxiety she was experiencing. She wasn't comfortable to try to go to the bathroom on a leash the entire time we were away from home. And as soon as that evacuation order was lifted, my husband put her in the car. So 3 days went by. My husband put her into his truck, drove her home so she could use the bathroom in her backyard. And as soon as that girl hit her paws on her backyard, she went to the bathroom. And it's funny now, but to like watch her go through it, because I know she was suffering, and I was so close on that third day. I'm like, she is shutting down. I have to get her to the vet. And that's about the time that the evacuation order was lifted. And my husband said, I'm putting her in the car, taking her home. Let's see what she does. Because he was saying she won't go because it's not her yard. They know their yard.
Yeah.
But yeah, she had a very hard time with everything. Lincoln, he's our rescue puppy. So I think since he's, you might actually get to see him if I get to come around here. Come here, bud. Lincoln, come here. Link, come here, bud. Come here. Come say hi. Come here, buddy. Oh, he's trying. Let me see if I can get him in. Lincoln. Yeah. He's right. Let me see him flip around. Can you see him?
Yes. Aren't you a cutie?
Yeah. That's my boy. That's my boy. I think since he's a rescue puppy, I think that, he's experienced more in his life. He's kind of okay with moving around, where this is the only home that Chevy's known. Yeah. But health-wise, they're both well. Knock on wood right now.
That's good. Good.
Yeah. But she had a very difficult time when we were in East Liverpool. Yeah. But yeah, and something I didn't talk about. I don't know if you want to hear when we all decided as a family to all leave before that possible catastrophic failure, the controlled burn. We decided to leave as a family. So my mom, uncle, sister, brother-in-law, son, my husband, and we all decided to meet in East Liverpool, Ohio. We met in Dunham's parking lot. It's roughly half an hour from everyone. So we decided to meet there in the parking lot. We had no plans. We had no places booked, no hotels booked. We sat there in Dunham's parking lot on Sunday afternoon for 4.5 hours trying to find a place to stay as a family. Yeah, that was insane because I think we had 5 cars. My family is a dog family. Everyone in our family has a dog or more, one or more. I think we had 5 cars, 7 adults, 7 dogs. Let me get this right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No, 5 adult dogs and 2 puppies. Yeah. Try to find a place to stay. Yeah, it's almost damn near impossible to find a place to stay.
Yeah.
I put out on my Facebook page a desperate call. Does anyone have a house that I could rent? And then a really good friend of mine, she answered, try Airbnb, and I never once gave that a thought. That was a lifesaver for us. That truly was a lifesaver for us. And my sister and brother-in-law was able to locate a home over in Midland, PA. And then we were able to locate a house that accepted pets as well. And we had that booked. We just went ahead and booked it until the end of February because we didn't know how long evacuation was going to be. But that was a lifesaver for us because I was very much prepared to live in my car in Dunham's parking lot. I was not going to leave my dogs.
Right.
Not going to try to take them to a shelter or, ask them to keep them. No, I would live in my car with my dogs before I let a stranger try to take them. Yeah. Yeah. Or leave them at a shelter. I was not going to do that to them. Yeah.
Is my dog going here? No, he's asleep. Yeah, let me move out of the way. He's in the back there. He kind of blends in with the blanket. It's a schnauzer.
Yeah, they're a huge part of your family. And yeah, Lincoln was very much my therapy too. I love my Chevy girl. I call her my hell on wheels. She is my she's my protective wild child, where Lincoln is very laid back and very much your therapy. He could very well be a therapy dog, and that was going to be the plan for him, but that never took place. But yeah, so we all sat in Dunham's parking lot for like 4.5 hours trying to find a place to stay. And yeah. And then you start to feel homeless because you don't know if this catastrophic failure is going to happen, if your home's going to be wiped out. You don't know if you're going to get a home to come back to. In my mind, the pictures that we were seeing online with the line of fire and how widespread it was, in my mind, I believe that my home was already gone. You start believing your home is gone. That day that they did the controlled burn, they shut off the electricity in the surrounding area here. So all of the security cameras, all of your Ring cameras and your cameras that you have on your house, everything went dark. So we couldn't even check in to see if the house was here. So that's really freaky. You can't even, you can't do that because all the power was cut.
Yeah, I guess they had to because you had flammable gas.
Yeah.
In the area.
Yeah. But yeah, you couldn't even check in to make sure that it's still standing. But as we were sitting in the parking lot, you start to believe you're homeless. You guys. And where we landed, daily, we were actually meeting homeless people. And then it puts into different perspective. Yeah. There's so much wrong in this country right now. There's so much wrong.
Yeah, and it's only getting worse. But I don't want to just y'all got enough to worry about. So that's why we're just talking about East Palestine today. We're not going to talk about any of the news. I don't know if you're following anything that's been happening at all nationwide, but
I haven't been following a whole lot.
Okay.
If you want to touch on it, you can. Yeah.
Because I don't want to.
It's okay.
Okay. I think the most recent news is just that there was a major bank that's been seized by the Fed.
Yeah.
Because they're. I don't know the details of exactly what's happening, but essentially that's like the first failure of this. Everybody's been saying it for like a long time. It's like we've got a huge, like, not just recession, probably a depression coming. And I think that's just the first. Just like in 2008 when it was Lehman Brothers. 2023 it's SVB. And when that news came out, I tweeted out like, hold on to your butts, because it's about to be a bumpy ride. And I'm not entirely sure how that will impact like y'all's situation specifically, because I'm, like I said, y'all have got enough to worry about just with the health issues and getting and trying to find some recompense.
The thing
but
is,
to have like an economic downturn on top of it.
We touched on I think we touched on like housing costs.
Mm-hmm.
My husband and I, we started searching through houses, and anything that's comparable to what we own here is 3 and 4 times the price. And to take out, another mortgage at our age, 30-year, mortgage, and with everything that's going on with the economy, I don't even know if we would be able to. I don't know if they'll, I don't know. There's so many I don't knows.
Yeah. It's quite unpredictable. Like, are we going to get like a hyperinflation incident, or is it just going to be deep depression with lots of unemployment?
I think we're already in the depression. I think we've been in. I believe we've been in the depression for at least 6 or 8 months now. That's what I'm seeing. And I'm not, by no means am I an economist. I'm just a small business owner. I think I agree with you. Hold on to your butts. I think it's going to be one hell of a ride.
Comment from Robert: home prices are ridiculously inflated. And
they are.
Like, I am currently with my parents because I had a house, but I was living in the Midwest. I lost my job, and I don't have the down payment. I can't get a house. And then like I've thought about like because I've been here for a little over a year now, like can I go rent? And then I went checking rent prices recently, and I'm like, remember that? Do you remember that guy who ran? I think it was for the Democrats. The rent's too damn high. Like he like made his own little party out of it. Like the rent's too damn high party. Like, and that's what I'm feeling here. Why would I pay these rents? Now, granted, I'm in an area that's next to a military base, and I think because of the housing allowances that military get, I think that's inflating the rental prices. So
it's crazy. Now. Make sure that I have this plugged in so we don't. Sorry.
Yeah, no worries.
But yeah, it's stupid. It's stupid that the prices are like this. It's just.
I did see some point this week the median home price has dropped for the first time in a long time. So I think it's a sign of the downturn. The bubble is starting to pop. So on the plus side of that, at least the home prices will have to come down, because if nobody can buy them, then they have to come down. But there's going to be a lot of people who are kind of screwed over by that because they've already bought in. They're going to go underwater. And it'll be better for them to just get evicted from the house than to try to work it out or to sell it.
Yeah.
Just like in 08, except this is probably going to be worse. Like all the stats that I've seen, it's much worse now because the amount of pressure that the financial sector has put on the markets is so much more than what it was in 08.
You know, I know how very lucky we are that we have our own home. One of the reasons why we have this house, my mom and dad were in a bad car accident, and I lost my dad due to that. Yeah, that was, you know, my dad was one of the strongest people I've ever known in my entire life. And he worked his ass off to provide for my mom and my sister and me. And after we lost him, it was the first time in my life that we needed an attorney. And it was because of my dad is the reason why I have this house, because my husband purchased it in 94. So from 94 to 2006. And then after 2006, when my parents were in the accident, after my dad passed away, I was able to pay off our house. And that was a gift from my dad, you know, when I lost him. So if I lose this house, if we lose this house, it's like losing him again, you know, and that kills me inside. That just breaks me. Sorry.
You are fine. I mean,
you know,
you're just
like,
yeah, it's,
you know, because he worked so hard to provide for our family. And then to live through seeing him suffer because of the car accident that was no fault. It was not their fault. And then we lost him from his injuries due to the accident. And the one thing I remember growing up, my dad always said, he's like, I wish that I would have been able to buy your mom a big house. I wish I was able to buy your mom a big house. So that was the first thing I did, was pay off our mortgage because of my dad. And, you know, it's more than a house. This is a gift from my dad.
yeah.
And they're taking it. They could take it from me. So it's like they're taking my dad again. I don't know. And they can't get away with this. They can't get away with this. They can't do this to people. You just can't. If this happens again in another little town like this, you know, these are people's lives. This is everything they've worked for in their entire life. Their entire life. And they can just roll over us, you know, just use their train and just roll through town and roll over top of us like we don't matter. We matter. Every single person matters. And their stories matter, and their families matter. I don't know. Something has to change.
Yeah.
And I'm terrified. I am terrified. I'm not terrified of them. I don't, you know, I know everyone has different views. My God is bigger than them.
Yes.
That's the way I feel. My God is bigger than Norfolk Southern, so I'm not afraid of them. I'm afraid of losing everything that my family's worked for in our entire lives. And that includes my dad and my mom. You know, they gave us so much. And to know that this could just all be taken away. We don't know. We don't know.
I'd have to wonder if, I mean, to me, the fact that it hasn't been declared super funds, I'm wondering, like, to me, that feels somewhat more, like divine intervention, to be honest. And so I'm very hopeful.
I am too. I am too.
I mean, you know, God stopped the second train. You know, perhaps he's stopping the government as well from stealing from you. Like, they steal enough from us every freaking year. Like, it before we got on, Cam and I were talking that, you know, he mentioned like, oh, I need to work on my taxes. I'm like, I was working on that today. Like, I hate that term. I don't want to call it taxes anymore. It's just like, I'm working on the government theft. That's what I'm working on. Government stealing my money. In fact, I'm trying to get some of it back. Yeah,
just call it theft, because
taxation is theft.
look at what we're going through right now. No one's helping us. No one's helping us.
Right. Yeah. Where does all that money go? And then of course they print like trillions on top of it. And it's like, where does all that money go? I mean, I am a federal contractor, and where I work, I ask like the place is falling apart. And I'm just like, every time that comes up, I say, this is like, they spent like an extra $1.5 trillion, and you can't get, you know, like $500,000 to fix up this place. You know, like, good Lord.
And seriously, like, we're getting donations of water from ordinary people, you know, just ordinary human beings bringing their truckloads of water into our town.
I mean, honestly, like, I'm a libertarian, so we believe in volunteering and charity will always outperform government. Always.
Yes.
Always.
Yeah.
So I want to encourage people out there, if you can do. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and do a quick plug of the shirt again.
And like it was discussed over at the Pennsylvania Senate hearing, you know, the National Guard could get brought in, and they have water purification units that, you know, could be providing water to the community. That never happened. Then why are they there?
I know, right?
Why do we have them? Why do we have that? It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. People have farms and have horses and cattle. And we're all concerned about well water. And is that okay? So everyone's scrambling to get their well water tested. Yeah. When, you know, National Guard could be bringing in huge water purification units, and the animals could be provided for. Yeah. It's just insane. Because we're not a natural disaster, we're a man-made disaster. It should not matter.
I mean, to me, it might as well be classified as an act of terrorism.
It truly is.
For all you people in the chat and people who watch this later, all proceeds of this shirt that's Pete Buttigieg's face from photoshopped onto an iconic Anchorman photo with "Go fuck yourself, Ohio," because that's basically what he has said with his actions and his words. And it's not just him, but he's the face of it because he's the current transportation secretary. But you could put Governor DeWine on that, and just any number of people who've been silent, who know that this has happened and nothing's happening. So anyway, go get your shirt. All proceeds, all profits from this shirt's sale will go to the residents of East Palestine. We will send it. Flagrant will send it directly to people, and they can figure out how they need to spend it. You know, whether it's paying back credit cards for their evacuation, or just getting more bottles of water, or clean food, medical care, therapy. They're going to have a lot of bills coming up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything, it's so appreciated, and we're so thankful for you guys wanting to help us. So many people live paycheck to paycheck. This our little town, where so many people live paycheck to paycheck. And I had a friend tell me the other day, like, any one of us is basically, you're like one paycheck away from being homeless. Like, if you're living, it's crazy. Like, when we were, out of our home, the company that my husband works for, they're wonderful. They were so kind and wonderful during all of this, but my husband chose to use 2 of his vacation weeks so we could still have some kind of income. Hell of a way to spend a vacation, huh?
Right.
Yeah. Just, yeah.
All right.
My shop was closed this entire time.
Yeah.
I just could not. You can't mentally and physically, you can't be in 2 places at the same time, or 3 places at the same time, because I was still living in the Airbnb because I was terrified to come back home. Yeah. So try to run a business, a small business, a brick and mortar store, yeah, you just can't do it. And I tried to open last week. Like, I shortened my hours, so I have time now, beginning of the week, to schedule doctor's appointments, or if I have to meet with an attorney. I'm trying to juggle that all now around running a business and taking care of family and your home, and trying to clean and downsize and throw away as much as you possibly can of 30 years of your life. And you make stupid decisions, because I broke down yesterday realizing, and when we were discussing this in an interview, I threw away things that, like a simple basket of seashells that we collected on a family vacation years ago, probably maybe 25 years ago, but they were my seashells, and I threw them away because I felt they were contaminated. Just those like, you make those decisions, like, I can't keep this. They ruined it. They ruined this for me. Yeah.
All right. Well, we've been going for we're approaching 3 hours. I mean, I know we started a little bit late, but anyway, like, Lonnie, thank you so much. I mean, thank you for testifying at the PA's Senate hearing. I mean, and express that to all the others that if you come across them that have done that, because that's what
I will.
That's what's needed. At this moment, it just needs more airtime, like, just more people, like, bringing light to it, because when enough people get angry and start demanding change, then I think maybe we'll see some recompense for you and your neighbors and your family.
I hope so. I know I've watched myself on that video, and I don't even know who that person is. I feel a lot stronger today than I did that day. So I know I am getting better, but trauma, it does a number to your brain and your body. It just, I don't know. And some people just tell you, you need to move on. Yeah.
People who
I know.
I don't take advice from people who've never gone through or or haven't tried what they're trying to advise me on. It's just like if you've not done it, then how are you advising me on it? Yeah,
Right.
I mean, I get sometimes people are trying to be like helpful, but people, that's not what's needed.
Sometimes it's best to just stand in silence or give someone a hug.
Yes,
Yeah.
hugs are great. Hugs help people with that. It's one of the most helpful things you can do. And prayer.
And prayers.
Definitely pray.
Yeah.
Like we don't pray just because we don't pray because we're just sending positive thoughts. We pray because we believe there's a God out there.
And I truly believe that he protected us that night, because this could have been catastrophic from the moment it derailed. Like, looking back, I realize I was 2 seconds. I was literally 2 seconds from not being on this planet.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
but you're here, so that means that he's not finished with you yet.
No.
So.
I think I'm here for a reason.
Yeah.
So, and
right,
I thank you guys so much for wanting to help us again. Thank you for wanting to talk to me. I really appreciate you listening to my story.
Yeah. And we definitely would like to do follow up down the roads as well. Just keep an eye on how things are going with you guys and
check in. Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
Stay in touch. Okay.
Yeah, we will. And all right, guys, chat again. Go get your t-shirts.
Thank you.
Be praying, sending positive thoughts. If you don't believe in God, I pity you if you don't, but it's okay. And everybody, I hope you have a better night than you did last night, and let's lift each other up.
Yeah. Be kind to one another. Just be kind.
Be kind. Do not. Gosh.
Just be kind.
Yeah, they did not deserve this. This is not. Yeah. I mean, that just have the fact that people have said that, because of who you voted for is just so triggering. I can barely, you see me just stammering over my words whenever I think about it.
Yeah. Just be kind. It doesn't matter who you voted for. It doesn't matter. It just does not matter. What matters is that we're all human beings walking on this planet together. And something has to change, because I'm terrified that the next small town this could happen to. I don't want this to happen again. I do not want people to live through the hell that I'm living through.
Absolutely.
And if I can do something to bring awareness to that, I'm going to do it. So, yeah. Thank you, guys.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.